Welcome one more day to Life en Armonía. I resume the publication of videos. I'm here in Galicia, the northern part of Spain, and I have been releasing important messages in the Spanish channel, so I will keep releasing these messages in this channel. The other day, something happened in Spain, something really dramatic in a sense. A 25-year-old girl decided to use the state to be murdered, because that's the only word we can apply in this case, using the so-called euthanasia, which literally would mean good death. Eu is good in Greek, and thanatos is death. So it is legal in some places of Europe to receive an injection, being murdered, when the person has certain conditions. In this case, the girl could not walk properly because she jumped from a 5th floor in 2022 after being raped by 3 boys. She also was mistreated and raped by her ex-partner, and the state of depression and self-deprecation and self-sabotage was so intense that she decided it was better to stop living. At least this is the manipulation in which she was led. I say that doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists failed completely. She lacked a proper guidance, and there was probably an interest in her doing so because she was also speaking about abuses in a center where she was. Very probably political authorities were not interested in having this girl speaking about what happens in certain institutions for underage people. Anyway, I see all this as part of the highly narcissistic manipulation in which society is being enslaved since ancient times, even though nowadays it is more important to manipulate the masses because we are more. We are 9,000 billion people, and obviously those who are in power cannot allow society to take control. This is why there is no such thing as democracy. Democracy means the power, kratos, of demos, society. So the elites, the power-possessing people cannot allow society to govern herself. But obviously they need to manipulate by means of lying and making people believe they can just govern or help to govern, following their own interests which, by the way, are created by manipulation as well. And this happens obviously since 5,000 years ago, even though nowadays the manipulation is even greater. This is why the narcissists which are ruling all over society have to apply certain methods of manipulation and deception, so things which are horrible can appear as something good, just as these types of euthanasia, where a young girl can be literally murdered because the state considers she has the right to do so. So they deny the true value of life, of goodness, of honesty, justice, beauty, because those higher spiritual values do not really exist in the physicalist paradigm that rules not just science or medicine, but the whole society is a very dull and empty materialism. And I say empty because you can also be a spiritual materialist. you can consider there is a substance, a huge amount of energy of life that expresses itself with consciousness, higher values that belong to conscience. We perceive values through conscience, even though there are biological values such as survival or utility, which are precisely the values that are used in our society. So in the utilitarian survival mode hierarchy, there cannot be democracy. And when you have a society only based on utilitarian and survival mode values, obviously you have dominated people that are going to have symptoms. This is a natural consequence of this system of domination. And this is important to understand because there is a proliferation, an increasing number of disorders such as ADHD, autism, of allergies, digestive problems, and many other ailments that doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists cannot explain fully. They just use certain patches to quit the symptoms for a while, but the inner root causes are still there. Nature always expresses itself mirroring the inside through the outside. So if there is chaos inside, obviously this is going to come out some way or another. And the psyche feels completely overwhelmed and saturated by the bombardment of fake news, of cruelty, of deception, of manipulation. And as we cannot endure that in a natural state, in a relaxed way, even though sometimes in the school kids are manipulated and they are relaxed, but as our psyche cannot tolerate that, we experience tension. And this tension is the origin of many of the so-called disorders. Now, as soon as you begin to bring order by becoming aware of the wholeness, the true tree of lives, full of true values, then everything starts to be really harmonized, not harmonized, harmonized without harm. And this harmonia is the true working system called the tree of lives. In the tree of lives, there are no hierarchies, there are holarchies. Every component is a whole. There are higher values that are expressed by the members, the elements, and these members help others to grow, to be not on top of the pyramid, but to be a supportive system, reciprocal maintenance, so to say. So we have to shift our way of thinking. This implies stop believing in things like politics or democracy. It's an irony that democracy was born in the ancient Greece, even though in those days only the 40% could vote. The rest were women, kids, old people, sick people, and they could not vote. And nowadays, many people can vote, but obviously under a huge manipulation. And those systems of government are imposing things that might seem an expression of human rights or higher values, but they are another strategy to manipulate people. Therefore, if you really want to grow inwardly, just find wholeness within yourself, find others that really understand this dynamic of growing fully without submitting themselves to spiritual gurus that tell you how to breathe or how to walk or do this or do that following this rule or that rule, because that is part of the system of control also. That's an expression of the tree of knowledge of good and deficient, even though the tree of knowledge of good and deficient goes back to the times in which the architects, engineers that were in charge of this system made mistakes, and they tried to repair those mistakes by generating a pyramid of domination, a system of control where the higher ones dominate the lower ones, the strongest dominate the weakest. Light and darkness are put side by side, so light can influence darkness, but this didn't work. Good-hearted people were always dominated and massacred by evil people, because we need something else. It's not just being good and fight evil. It is necessary to grow an hierarchic conscience, an integral consciousness as well, that help us understand this whole theater of deception in which we are trapped. Even when we are looking for something spiritual, there are so many deceptions within the spiritual world, and it's a pity to see people that are in trouble, that they are seeking for answers in this practice, that practice. I was talking with a girl that was abused by a narcissist, and she is looking for answers in certain practices and doctrines, but obviously, as I said, this is a way of breaking your will, because when someone tells you you have to follow certain rules to get some results, and you don't understand that, you submit your will to someone who does not understand either, because you can see how these false gurus teach things that are not in tune with the true life, where there are no manipulations, controls, where there is no need to pay some karma. Obviously, there are attachments and karma or actions that generate results in this world, because cause and effect are something natural. But in a reciprocal way of living, you balance everything. You don't have just to pay karma, because everything is paid in advance. You express wholeness, and this wholeness supports you, protects you, supports others. And this is the way of living the tree of lives. It's not a question of dominating or wanting to evolve by means of practicing some secret teaching. It's more becoming aware of the wholeness that is here and now. Obviously, bringing a new way of thinking, which is not based on separation, duality, and a way of feeling that expresses those higher values I mentioned earlier. True justice, true integrity, true honesty, solidarity, etc., etc. And if there is any question, any comment, leave it in the box below. Thank you for listening and for the support. I leave the blog where I will be publishing an article expressing all this. You have the link down below. And as I said, I also have the web where I announce activities we will be having, and even courses or personal orientation in private sessions. And meanwhile, let's keep harmonizing mind, body and heart with an integral movement dynamic, holarchic dynamic, so we can express the love without limits, life without fragmentation, integral conscience and deep blissful serenity.